Okay, we're live. Welcome everybody to this week's edition of Fights Unwrapped. To the left of me is my co-host, Mr. Alec Carr, and we always do this every single time we start our little podcast. But Alec Carr, if you wanted to shout out anything, this is your time to do so.
Yeah, as always, guys, you can follow me at AlecTD Carr for my own personal opinions on fights, on basketball, football, any sport you can think of. Hell, just basically anything you can think of, I have opinions on. Please at me, like I always say. If you disagree or you don't like something I say, please, let's talk about it. Let's debate. I love it. It's what I thrive off of. Um, Also, you can follow me at Fourth and 26 Sports. A lot of Philadelphia content coming out of that as we are Philadelphia based. Um, but my Sixers stuff going to be coming out because we're making a good playoff push. Looks like we're going to clinch that first seed. A lot of Eagle stuff on the exact opposite side of things. Looks like we're going to be horrible.
Yeah.
Um, and then also some fight content coming out of there. You can see some retweeted posts, some big headlines. We'll get them out there as quickly as we can so that everybody can see it. And follow me and Monique, of course, at Fights Unwrapped. Uh, we wouldn't be here if it weren't for Fights Unwrapped. So please give us a follow. If you're not following and you're not watching Fights Unwrapped, I don't know what you're doing if you claim to be a fight fan. And then to wrap it all up, please follow and like and look up and search and tell all your friends about Unwrapped Sports Network. Um, Absolutely incredible people, huge family to be a part of.
Huge
Um,
family.
a
Huge family.
huge family. You want news from Chicago? We got you. You want news from New York? We got you. And it's all people from those areas giving out great content. You can find the articles online. You can find us on Twitter. Um, it's absolutely incredible. Please follow and like Unwrapped Sports Network.
All right, thank you, Mr. Alec Carr. So before we start with our headlines, we have to talk about our sponsors real quick. So let's go. I always can't wait until Carlos Condit goes into the octagon, but he's a huge proponent of RxHemp.com. So that's a premium CBD product right there. They have icy cold creams right there for anybody who is suffering from injuries or is recovering from training. If you're training, that is, you can visit rxhemp.com and we have a promo code rxhemp-usn to get 10% off your entire order. As well, I'll be betting for sure this weekend for this card, and none other than mybookie.ag is the site I use, and we have a promo code USN100 for a 100% sign up bonus if you register today, so you can get double up your first deposit. So that's that. And we are going to talk about our headlines. The first one we talked about for a while now, but now there's this ramification of what John Jones versus Stipe. That's what Dana White was referring to. He was interested in that fight because basically, Zingano and Derek Lewis is slated to happen, I believe, in the summertime. They're trying to make that fight happen in the summertime. So, what do you think, Alec Carr? Do you like this fight, John Jones versus Stipe Miocic, or do you think this is a waste of time, as we all probably discussed in lengthy detail in Fights and Rap Chat?
Let, Listen, I like the fight. I do. How could you not like a Jones versus Stipe fight? I'll be pumped up about it on the inside. I'll get pumped up. It's one of those fights I would get pumped up the week of. Just because this is getting to be too much. Dana is taking John Jones for a ride. Um, Again, it's never been actually confirmed, but it's widely believed that Jones stepped up to heavyweight to fight the champion, the winner of Ngannou Stipe. Um, and now he's got to sit for Derek Lewis, a nothing fight. I love watching Derek Lewis fight. The guy's knockout power is absolutely insane. He's always one punch away. It's in the first round or fifth round. It doesn't matter. He is one punch away from putting you to sleep. Um, but it's a nothing fight. No one cares about it. It's going to be a quick win for Francis Ngannou. It should be Jones versus Ngannou. This is simply because Dana doesn't want to pay John. He doesn't want to pay John Jones. I don't care. You again, please at me, follow me, at me on Twitter. Comment in the comment section here if you don't like what I'm about to say. John Jones did not turn down any fights. He did not. He knows his value. He knows he's one of the top 2 greatest fighters of all time. And he wants to get paid like it. There's nothing wrong with wanting to get paid your worth to the company. And for the people out there who say, well, John Jones never made big money fights, his name never put a lot of money out there, I'm calling bullshit on all of you, because all of you know that Francis Ngannou versus John Jones would be one of the top 3 most money-making fights of all time. And for people to come out and say that nonsense is absolutely insane. But I digress. Because this is John Jones versus Stipe, not
this
John Jones versus... This
is your rant of the week, man. This is your rant of the week, I swear.
Yeah, it's just... we were promised as fans. Listen, you're a huge fight fan. I'm a huge fight fan. I've been a huge UFC fan since UFC 1, rewatching UFC 1. I've seen all of them. And to get promised a fight by Dana White. We were promised a fight by Dana White. He said... He guaranteed the winner of Francis Ngannou Stipe is John Jones' next opponent. And now he's backtracking because he has this delusional plan that John Jones is going to fight Izzy for the light heavyweight when Izzy's not ever coming up to light heavyweight again. He learned his lesson real quick that he not do that because they'll get drug into deep water. So Dana, you got the big money fight in front of you. Fucking make it. Stop it with this nonsense, man. I mean, seriously. We all want it. All the fight fans want it. I have not seen... People might say that John Jones isn't worth that much, but not a single person has said they don't want to see Francis Ngannou versus John Jones. This is what we all been waiting a year for. Oh, man, it's just so frustrating. Again, if this fight happens, I'll be super excited. I think John Jones wins in a landslide. I think he did. Stipe's never fought anybody with the ground game that John Jones has. Ever. Never, ever. And John Jones, you saw the pictures recently, I assume. He's a freaking mammoth of a man right now. He's terrifying looking. So, I mean,
Stipe doesn't but he has small calves, though. that's the joke.
Yeah, that's right. It's true, but that's more genetics than anything else.
That's probably more genetics, yeah.
I got a big upper body, but no matter what I do to my calves, I got small calves. I feel your pain, John.
Yeah. I know that's the joke that's running around, that even though he has bulked up in size, his calves are still really skinny and stuff like that. So that's just funny. I had to point that out. But I guess my opinion on this is that I'm really frustrated because I think that there was just so much hype that the media and MMA Twitter, we built up, wanting to see John Jones versus Francis Ngannou. We all wanted to see that fight. We all want to see that fight. And that's why there was so much hype going into seeing who's going to be the winner of Stipe versus Ngannou, right? And then because of that, and then when we found out that Ngannou was going to win, and then we're just like, oh, yes, John Jones versus Ngannou. And it was everywhere. It was everywhere. I mean, like, all the fans want to see it. I don't know why Dana White won't give the fans what they want. And it's a win-win situation because the fans want it. And it's going to pay big bucks, and it's going to be one of the biggest selling gates, and especially now that the crowds are back, it's definitely going to be one of the biggest selling gates. I don't see Ngannou versus Lewis as something that's going to make a lot of money for the company. And then you always point out the business side of things, Alec Carr. This doesn't make sense business-wise as well. So in all spectrums, Derek Lewis versus Francis Ngannou makes absolutely no sense, except for the fact that Derek Lewis obviously paved his way, did his dues, obviously knocked out a lot of contenders to achieve that number one contender spot. That's the only thing that makes sense, which is fine, but it's just that, like I said, us, the fans, MMA Twitter, the media, we've hyped up this fight, and now we're not gonna get it. I won't say never, but we're not gonna get it, and it's just I was looking forward to it so much. Yeah.
I'll say never. If Dana White doesn't change his mind on this, we're never going to see this fight because Jon Jones is, to his credit, I've never credited Jon Jones for being that smart outside of the octagon. I never would. I don't think he is.
Yeah.
Especially business wise. I don't think he's very smart business wise, but he's got the right people in his ear right now telling him, you hold out for this fight. You are the UFC. You're the pound for pound greatest fighter of all time. You wait. You wait your turn because that's you have all the negotiation power. But then the fans come. If it turns out he gets offered this fight and he turns it down, all the Jon Jones haters are going to come out, and I can understand why you hate the guy. The guy's a douchebag. But they're all going to come out and say, "See, he does turn down fights," and it's like, anyway, that's a whole nother topic for another day. I hate this. Just give me Ngannou versus Jones. I'm sick of it.
Yeah, I know. Me too. I don't know if we're ever gonna get it because I don't know if Dana's ever gonna want to pay Jon Jones's worth, right? So that's our whole argument for this one. So we'll move on to the next headline. So in better news, Conor McGregor makes the Forbes list for the highest paid athlete of 2021 with $180 million worth his revenue. Oh yeah. And a lot of it obviously has to do with Proper 12, his company, but at the same time, obviously I'm not surprised at this number, at all. And I was a little bit surprised that he surpassed a few athletes, like some of the soccer players. I was surprised he surpassed that, but at the same time, with the success of his company and now that he sold his company for, I think it was what, $600 million. This man's unstoppable, man. It's just rating bills like up in the McGregor household, right? So, I mean, I guess this is a major headline just because of for MMA fans. Like, I think for me, like looking at it, I'm not a Conor McGregor fan, but I can see how much he's done for the sport, and this is just another avenue, that he's just reached.
I think it's huge for the sport, and that's why we're talking about it. Listen, I am kind of a Conor fan. I used to be a huge Conor fan, but not as much anymore. But this is more about the sport, and usually the highest paid athlete on Forbes list is usually a boxer, and I think this is the first time an MMA fighter tops the list. And listen, Conor McGregor, this speaks to his business savvy. The guy knows what he's doing. Talk about having all the right people. I mean, he sold a whiskey company for $600 million. It's absolutely absurd. And he's still a spokesperson of that. So he's still getting paid by them. And now he's looking to buy a soccer or football team, whatever you want to call it.
Manchester United. I think it was Manchester United, yeah.
Manchester United and the Celtic, the Irish team he's thinking about buying too. So, yeah. I mean, I think this guy has plans to buy part of the UFC. I think, and again, people can add me on this. I think Conor McGregor low-key hates Dana White and always has. People forget that Dana White made Conor White when he was on the come-up and kept giving him bullshit opponents, and every time he fought before he was champion, Dana White would never pick him to Conor McGregor to win. So I think that kind of, and Conor's been one of the first athletes that would like him or hate him. He was one of the first athletes to talk about a fighters union. He hasn't done anything about it, but he was one of the first athletes to talk about it. He's talked about fighter pay before. He's come out against Dana a couple of times. So I think, and this is just my personal thoughts, there's no proof, but I think he low-key hates Dana, who wouldn't let him buy part of the UFC before. So I think he's going to come in, try to make $1 billion, buy into the UFC, and just rub it in Dana's face. That's what I hope for.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he can now because I believe is it called UFC's under Endeavor, so you can actually buy stocks now. So it's a public trade, company, something like that, right? So he can actually do that if he actually wanted to. But I just think that this is huge just for the sport of MMA. So like, even though I'm not a Conor fan, like I reiterated earlier, this is huge that a MMA fighter has surpassed the boxer, has surpassed the soccer star, has surpassed yada 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 athlete to become the richest athlete of 2021. So that's why we have to
He
talk about
hardly
this.
fights. He
And
hardly
he
fights.
hardly fights. And he's so busy doing his other shenanigans and obviously making other business ventures. That makes me question, like, because like Conor McGregor, like he's not just a great fighter, he's a great businessman. Like he's so
Right.
savvy. It makes me think, is we're just not going to see him fight that often because I think that his other interests are it's all about money, for him right
Right.
now.
When you're
As you can
when
see.
you're worth $500 million, it's hard to step into the octagon and get punched in the face for a living.
I
I'm
mean,
sure.
like, he doesn't
Listen,
need
I don't
to.
know personally, but I know if I was worth $500 million, it would be really hard to convince me to get into the octagon to get punched in the face. Doesn't matter
Yeah.
how much willingness I was to fight on the come up. I'm still worth as $500 million. So yeah, I this is you're clearly. I think this is more news for Conor. You're not going to see him that often. He's going to pick his fights. I'm excited for the Dustin fight, but good for Conor. Good for the UFC. Good for MMA. Hopefully, other fighters follow suit. Um, it looks like Dustin's trying to. I don't know how well that will work,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but there is a path to make a lot of money. You just got to be really good at fighting first.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, Dustin's trying to, but I don't know, like the people around him and stuff like that. Like, and obviously his philanthropy work is amazing. So kudos to that with the Good Fight Foundation. But I just think that like outside of the octagon, like Conor's business savvy mind is just incredible. Like there's not many fighters that I know that have that business savvy
Right.
mindset, and Conor McGregor has that. So he doesn't even need to fight anymore. Maybe he fights like once every 3 years. Maybe he becomes like one of the Diaz brothers and fights like once every 3 years. But then
Right.
but then you see him making money moves. That's what I should have titled this. Conor makes money moves, but because he really
Yeah,
is.
for sure.
Hello, Bean. Welcome to our
Yeah,
podcast.
Beans being bad. This is unwrapped fights. Fights unwrapped
It's our mascot.
mascot right here.
That's right. But yeah, so kudos to Conor. We're gonna move on to our next headline, which is a little sad, but it's inevitable. So Anderson Silva, pretty much in an article recently, said that he thinks he's done with MMA, and he has nothing to prove to anyone. And you know what? I agree with that 100%. It was inevitable that he was going to retire soon, and we all knew that. So, but I know he's like trying to transition into boxing as well because that's the rumor, right? So I don't know how I feel about that personally, but at the same time, this was inevitable. So I guess I'm not too shocked about this news right now. But at the same time, I'm a little sad just because he's one of my all-time favorites of all time. It's like just all-time greats. I've always watched his fights, and yeah, I don't. How do you feel about this, Alika? I know Venus has something to say about this.
Sorry about that.
That's
Bean is
okay.
barking because I won't let him go. Being quiet, buddy. So I think this is a long time coming. I think it's good. He doesn't have anything else to prove. The guy's, in my opinion, the reason why I always say John Jones is one of the two greatest fighters of all time is because Anderson Silva's the greatest fighter of all time. I just pulled up his fight record. We're talking about a guy that's beaten Rich Franklin twice, beaten Dan Henderson. Um,
That's your favorite right there.
right, my favorite fighter of all time. Beaten, we all know and saw how he beat Forrest Griffin, beaten Damian Maya, beaten Chael Sonnen, beaten Vitor Belfort, Okami, Chael Sonnen again, Stephan Bonner, which was, kind of a joke. Why is Anderson
Yeah, no.
Silva? Um, the guy's beaten all the best of all time. He's got nothing left to prove. He's an absolute monster. He's the best mixed martial artist I've ever seen. All
Mm-hmm.
around mixed martial artist from grappling, clinch game, anything you can think of, striking. I mean, he's knocked the
Striking,
guy
yeah.
out with an upkick. So like, yeah, he's. I'm glad. I'm actually happy for him. I think this is good for him. It might be a really hard decision for him to make, but I think it will be good for him in the long run. Um, Go relax in Brazil, dude. You deserved it.
Yeah, for sure. Like he even said, like he just doesn't want to get hurt too often, and that's one of the reasons why he wanted to stop MMA. Was no Zoltan NY says revolutionize the clinch game and a high level MMA. That's for sure. That's for sure.
Yes, he absolutely did. Absolutely changed it. He's the most influential um, fighter in UFC and MMA history. He changed MMA forever. Um, Kind of like how Steph Curry changed the NBA with 3-point shots forever. Anderson Silva changed MMA forever. He changed how people got in the clinch. He changed how people fought on the ground, and he changed how people strike. I mean, he was. There weren't a lot of really good counter strikers until Anderson Silva. I mean, there were a few. Don't get me wrong, but not guys that were bobbing and weaving. I mean, that Forrest Griffin fight was absolutely absurd.
Hmm.
We've never seen anything like that in the UFC or MMA. And he was doing that stuff like that on a regular basis. I mean, good for him. Again, go chill on the beach of Brazil, man, because no one deserves it more than you do.
Yeah, I don't think he'll be chilling, but he has his academy. I think I don't know if you
Uh,
know about his academy for MMA, so he's definitely not going to be chilling, but he's definitely still going to train. And but just to
oh,
go
of
ahead and
course.
relax and don't worry about getting into the octagon anytime soon. You know, obviously, I'm a little sad about this just because, like, you know, I love seeing him compete. You know, always whenever I hear the name Anderson Silva, my heart goes like, you know, bazonkers, and I get like really happy. But you know, it was inevitable. So you know, obviously Anderson Silva, great career, and I can't wait to see what he does next. If it's boxing, great. You know, I don't know how I feel about that, like I said, but at the same time, you know, it is what it is, and you know, I wish him all the best, obviously. So, okay, so
If
I
it
feel
is,
like, yeah, what are you
I was
gonna
gonna say
say?
if it is boxing, he's got the perfect frame for it. I mean, he's a long, lanky dude and knows how to use his reach. If he takes 2 years, 3 years to actually train boxing, yeah, I could see him becoming a really good boxer. I don't think at this point in his life, in the age that he is, I don't think he'll ever want to create a problem in the actual professional boxing world. But he might do a couple of prize fights to, like he might fight Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Like he
Yeah,
might do that. I know that they were working on a fight. I don't think it was ever made official though.
it's not official yet, for sure. So we'll see about that. Okay, so I feel like our headlines are like kind of like a roller coaster of emotions because the next one I don't know how I feel about this. Okay, so Cerrone going down to 155, you know, to salvage a win because he needs one, and Dana is going to let him, and he wants to go back in the win column, obviously. So that's the reason why he's going down in weight class. I've never been a Cerrone fan, to be honest with you. Like I respect him. You know, outside of the octagon, we have different values. I would say that, but at the same time, I respect him as a fighter and an athlete, but I didn't pick him to win this weekend's fight. I picked Alex Morono to win that fight, and boy was I right, you know, with that knockout. So, how do you feel about Donald Cerrone right now? Do you think he's washed? Do you think he's like in a downhill trajectory, like how we always think like Tony Ferguson is in a downhill trajectory in his career?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's done. I don't really like Cerrone outside of the octagon either. I mean, I don't agree with him. I still like him. He seems like a down to earth guy. You know, he's got his ranch. He's always on. And whatever he's doing, like interviews, he always like pulls up on a horse.
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
right? He's a real life cowboy. And he might be a rich cowboy, but he's still a real life cowboy. Um, and like you said, all respect goes to him. The guy never turned down. I don't think ever in his UFC career turned down a fight. Um, and listen, he wasn't ever one of the top three. He wasn't really a serious contender at any real point in his career. He was always in the conversation for contention, but never really. It was like he was always like the oh yeah, and there's Donald Cerrone too. He was an actor in the talk for contending. He always puts on a good fight. The guy's an absolute stud. He's a warrior. He's taken absolute beatings, been in absolute wars. He needs to retire. Listen, if he wants to go down to 155 and take a cake fight,
there. Yeah.
And then retire on a win. I don't blame him. He deserves the opportunity to do that. So I do agree with Dana here. And Donald Cerrone always brings out the fight fans. It's guaranteed for fight fans to watch.
For sure.
Because the guy will put on a war. Yeah, he got stopped in the first round of his only UFC title fight. So yeah, the guy's an absolute monster. So give him the shot. He deserves it. It's sad to see guys like this happen to guys like this. At least it's not. I think he, even if in his comments, I don't have the article right in front of me, but in his comments he even mentioned that he knows that he's on the down end of his career. He knows that his next fight might be his last. So it's not like Tony Ferguson who's trying to hold on to the last string of the feathered thread.
Yeah.
Donald knows what's up. He knows what's going on. So I don't blame him. Let him go down. Let him fight. See if he can go out with the dub. I love it when guys do that. Now, if he keeps trying to do it and turns into Diego Sanchez, that's when we have a problem.
That's right. Yeah, for sure. Like I said, I've never been a fan of his, but at the same time, I can see his career going downhill, just because of recent wins and his opponents that he's faced as well. So if anyone pulls up Tapology or something like that, you can probably figure that out. But I think that Cerrone, I think this is his last hurrah. He needs to. If he goes down to 155 and he doesn't do well, that's it for him, And another fighter who recently, I think, said that his last fight with not his last fight, but Belal Muhammad versus Damian Maia. Damian Maia said that maybe that fight might be one of his last in his career. So that's another fighter that is talking about maybe this might be the last fight for me in this career. So that's kind of sad to think about. I didn't put that in the headlines, but I saw that recently. So, what do you think about it, Damian Maia? You think that might be his last fight?
Makes sense. I mean, the guy's been out of his prime for about 5 years, if we're being honest. And the game, the UFC and MMA has just changed so dramatically that it's his style of fight. If he was coming up, I don't want to say this because he's an all-time great in my eyes, especially grappler. He's one of the greatest grappling fighters of all time. But I don't know if his style of fight if he would be as successful if he would say 27 and just starting his UFC career. I think he looks at the field and goes, I'm really going to struggle if I keep trying to fight. So I'm old, I'm washed. Just get one more in and then I'll retire.
I just think that, so first we had Damian Maia. Everybody knew, if you're on the ground with Damian Maia, you are fucked. Do you know what I'm saying? But then now we have Charles do Bronx Oliveira, and he is, the new standard for me when it comes to, who's an exceptional BJJ specialist. And obviously who has an impeccable ground game. So that's why I just feel like there's just generations right here. It used to be Damian Maia, right? And then it'll always be Damian Maia for a lot of people. But now at the same time, now you have Charles do Bronx Oliveira, who, by the way, never gets any marketing from the UFC. I swear, every single thing that I look at is Michael Chandler, and everybody on MMA Twitter agrees with me 100%, talking about they just don't advertise Charles Oliveira. And he's not even a boring fighter or something like that. I'm just so confused about that. But anyways, I digress. That's my little rant for the week.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, he's probably the best fighter in the division. They don't even market him. They don't even try to market him.
We'll
And
see. We'll see if he
yeah,
wins this weekend. So
right. And the biggest difference between Stu Bronson and Damian Maia is he realized and adapted his game because when he first started, he had really no striking game to speak of. I wouldn't
Right.
call his striking elite, but he's got good striking. And we'll talk about that later, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so we are done talking about the headlines. So now we're gonna move on to our UFC 262 fight preview. Let me just see. I'm gonna share the screen to pull up the fights. Okay, there we go. So the first fight in the main card is a featherweight bout between Shane Burrows versus one of my favorite fighters, Edson Barbosa. So Edson Barbosa, like for me, I'm always on the fence with him right now. Because before he was on a trajectory to do well, and then for some reason he started playing with the weight classes a little bit. Like he went from featherweight to lightweight back down to featherweight, or sorry, and bantamweight as well. I believe he tried to do that as well, and then all of a sudden, his success wasn't right there. So, and Shane Burrows is on the come up right now. So I think I'm gonna decide with Shane Burgos, even though I'm a huge Edson Barbosa fan, just because I'm always on the fence with him right now. What do you think, Alec Carr?
Listen, Edson Barboza is definitely getting close to the downturn if he's not already there of his career. I like you. All fight fans love this guy. I mean, we could talk about his kicks for days, literally days. We could talk about his kicks, go through his different fights, and look at his different body kicks, leg kicks, head kicks. He snaps them off quicker than any fighter I've ever seen, and they are powerful. I think going up to lightweight killed him. I think that really, really hurt him. I think it was easier for him physically to make it. Obviously, he's not doing a weight cut, but I honestly think it killed him. He was the level of competition was too much. He lost a lot of his speed when he went up that. I mean, he was still doing damage with those leg kicks, but they weren't whipping off as fast as they were when he was featherweight. So I think this is a good fight. I'm going to pick with my heart here because I want to believe that Edson Barbosa is going to make one last push. I don't think he'll ever get back into contention, but I think he can beat a guy like Shane Burgos, who's coming off of a loss to Josh Emmett.
Right.
The things that scare me are guys like his losses to guys like Kevin Lee, who has gone missing apparently in the UFC. But
he's coming back. He's coming back. He's talking about coming back. So
Yeah, I know. It's just funny how he hasn't fought. Really, no, he fought one more time after that. But anyway, that fight, he thought he had Kevin Lee dead to rights, and for all accounts he did. But as soon as Kevin Lee got him on the ground, it was a wrap. And seriously, I've watched that fight a couple of times because Kevin Lee's comeback was absolutely insane. But I'm going to pick him. I think he whips off some of those legs. I think he's going to regain some of that speed back at featherweight. I'm not going to say he's going to dominate this fight. I think it goes to the decision, maybe with a late knockout in the third round. But I'm going to pick Edson Barboza. I think he knows he's got something to prove, and I like Shane Burgos too, like you do. But I'm not a huge believer in the guy, and I know Edson Barboza's skill. I know his talent. He's only lost to the top guys in the division. But no matter which division he's fighting in, he's only lost to the top guys. So I'm going to go with him on this one.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, I just think that this fight might go to decision. I don't know why. And if it goes to decision, maybe Edson Barbosa might win this one. But that's just my prediction for this fight.
Yeah.
So
And Shane Burgos is crazy, so he could pull off some weird shit and just absolutely win this.
He is,
Win
yeah.
this fight. But I'm talking myself out of picking Edson, but since I picked him at the beginning, I'm going to stick with it and hope that the Savvy Vet pulls off a victory, a much-needed victory. He's coming off a win already, I believe, so it would be 2 in a row for him after a downturn. Get him back into fighting some top guys.
For sure. All right, let's move on to the next fight, which is the women's flyweight division. We have Caitlin. I can never pronounce her last name correctly. Chookagian?
Yeah, you do it better than I do. So.
Chookagian versus Vivian Vivi Araujo, which I love pronouncing her last name.
Yeah.
But okay, I'm a huge Vivi fan. Caitlin to me is a little bit boring. She's skillful, don't get me wrong. I never doubt her skill, but she's a little bit boring with Vivi. Like, her striking is just amazing. She has power for days. I really believe in her, but the only thing that makes me doubt whether Vivi wins this one is obviously Caitlin Chookagian. Have you seen her? She's long and she's slim, and she can use that reach advantage to her advantage in this fight. But I still think just because striking-wise and, like, Vivi knows how to close the distance really well, I'm going to pick Vivi Araujo to win this fight. What do you think, Alikar?
I think this is going to look a lot like the Jessica Andrade Chookagian fight. I think Vivi's going to work her way inside, get inside, work on the body, and just annihilate her, to be honest.
Yeah.
I like Caitlin's a solid fighter. She really, really is. She's a good, like, talent tester. If that makes sense. She's the gate holder of the.
She's the gate holder. Yeah.
That last Vivi fight against Roxanne Modafferi told me everything I need to know about this person. She's got good ground defense. She's got good defense on takedown defense. And her striking is absolutely insane. I think she wins this fight. I think she wins in a second round knockout.
For sure. I just think that Caitlin is not too. Yeah. I just think that Caitlin's not too aggressive. You know what I'm saying? And like that's like her style is not really aggressive. She's more of a counter striker, if anything. You know, like if you can count that as counter striking, but it's just, you know, even though she's the gate holder for this division, she gets a lot of main card fights, so she gets a lot of spotlight. You know, if anything, you know, to be proud of, I would say. Yeah. But
yeah, gate holders do. You know, that's you want to put the up and coming talent on display. I think Vivi's coming up quick, and I think she's going to be fighting for a title pretty soon. I don't think it might be as soon as next year.
For sure, yeah, she's definitely on the come up. So, okay, we're going to move on to the next fight, which I'm not crazy about, but we have to talk about it anyways. So we have Matthew Schnell versus Rogerio Bontorin, if I pronounced that right. Hopefully I did. So, Matt Schnell, have you seen the striking? It's actually improved so much since his last fight. I don't know if you have, Alikar, but it's improved a lot. You know,
it has. I mean, I was really impressed in the Tyson Nam fight.
Because of that, I think I'm probably going to choose him. I don't know much about Rogerio too much, but I just know that Matt Schnell has improved his game a lot, and he's one of the up and coming fighters, and so you know, it's a gift for him because, like, you know, I predicted him to be in the prelims, but he actually got into the main card, so that's a gift for him to get into the main card for this fight card.
It absolutely is. I don't know if he deserves it. I mean, this is a card with Souza on the prelim fight, so which is weird. It doesn't make any sense. That's amazing.
They should switch it. They should switch it for sure. Yeah,
they probably should. And I think this is not just a gift for him to be on the main card, but a gift fight. I mean, Rogerio is coming off of 2 losses to one to Rayborg, which say what you will against him. He's nothing special. And Kai Kara France. So this is a gift, an absolute gift to Matt Schnell. He needs to capitalize this and come off a really good victory against Tyson Knobbs. Come off that and just do work. If he doesn't, it's going to be, he needs a lot more time, but he needs to absolutely come out and dominate this fight as he should. I don't know how he's going to win. I think it's going to be a decision fight. So again, like you, I'm not very excited for this. Just seeing Matt Schnell on the card doesn't really do much for me.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why we had to talk about this. But okay, we're gonna move on to the two fights that I'm excited to talk about. Obviously, the co-main event, which is Beneil Dariush versus Tony Ferguson. So, okay, Alec Hart, I swear to God, if you go on MMA Twitter, there are so many fans that think that Tony Ferguson is going to win this weekend. A lot. Like, a lot. They're like, championship only. Tony's going to win. I believe in Beneil Dariush, personally. Beneil Dariush is a monster. He's great striking. Tony Ferguson has just disappointed me day after day, fight after fight right now. Ever since, he hasn't looked the same since the Gaethje fight. Which was around this time last year, I believe, was the Gaethje fight. Yeah, it was around this time. I remember that. It was like May 12th or something like that. Something close to this date. But ever since then, he hasn't looked the same. Ever since then, he's been disappointing me. I don't know what these fans like. He has really good fans. Obviously, he has a really great fan base. So I'm not talking about that. It's just that I don't know what the fans see in him. But like you're talking about, he's not just fighting anyone. He's fighting Beneil Dariush. Out of everybody, and like Beneil Dariush, like I feel like he's so underrated. And so many people like don't really talk about him that much, but he should be in the talks right now because he is really good. His striking is amazing. His ground game is pretty good. He has a great ground defense. I just think he's gonna win. He's gonna annihilate Tony, in my opinion. He's just gonna light him up. What do you think, Alec Carr?
I'm definitely taking Beneil Dariush for this fight too. But, and it's a big but.
Okay.
You know how I feel about Tony recently. I've been the conductor of the train of he's going downhill since before the Gaethje fight. I've seen a definite downturn in his fight style and his craziness that he's known for in the octagon and out of the octagon. And he's way too worried about the finance of things. He thinks people are ripping him off when there's no actual evidence of it. He still thinks Khabib's camp owes him $200,000 for something. No one can figure it out.
I think it's one of the fights that never happened or something like that.
Right. Yeah, apparently he owes him $200,000 even though there's no record of this anywhere. Anyway, I digress from that. My point is, I can't count out Tony in this fight yet. He's not fighting a guy like Stu Bronx. He's not fighting a guy like... I love Beneil Dariush. He's one of the greatest stories in MMA right now. He's hilarious to watch because his striking is so unorthodox. You don't think it doesn't look like it has any power behind it because he's thrown off of his heels and not off of his toes. But then he knocks people out left and right. It's hilarious to watch. He looks like a drunk guy fighting when he's in the octagon.
Yeah.
And here's my but, and this is why I say it. That style versus Tony, if we see not even the same level of Tony, but if we see Tony, the crazy Tony that we all know, throwing crazy elbows and back fist and spinning kicks with an arm down and the crazy style of pinpoint striking that we've seen from Tony, I think he can pick Beneil apart. I think he really can. Tony's got length. If he uses that length and he uses his fight IQ for once in the past two fights,
I know, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I think he can pick Dariush apart and then get this to the ground and dominate where Tony dominates. Now, again, it's a huge but because and a huge if because I don't think it's in him anymore. I think he's way too concerned about other things. I think uses the wrestling. That's a great comment. It's a great comment, and I absolutely agree. I don't know. I don't know. But if he does use it, if he does actually set it up with his crazy striking to keep Dariush on his toes and afraid to have him strike, and if you put Dariush in a place where he's afraid to throw, this could go Tony's way really quickly.
Right.
But I don't think Tony has it in him. I just don't. That's why I can't pick him. I wouldn't be surprised if he does figure it out this fight because I don't think Dariush is quite on the level of some of the other guys that he's fought. I love Dariush. I think that style, that drunken style of fighting that he has, that unorthodox style of fighting, severely limits his potential in the division.
Right.
He'll always be entertaining. I don't know if he'll ever be a serious contender. Now, it begs the question, was Tony ever really a serious contender, or was he the benefit of circumstance?
He was. Like, you could say, like, there was a time and a period where he was, but at the same time, it's just the way that his career is going. I don't see it in him to do all that crazy stuff anymore. Like, that's why I said disappointing me time after time, fight after fight, since the Gaethje fight. He hasn't been the same,
Yeah. And he's been injured. I mean, listen, he might be the reason we might not see these crazy strikes that he catches people with and catches them off guard. And I mean, the reason Tony was as great as he was because of those crazy strikes. People couldn't throw. You had to try to wait to see what Tony was going to do.
Right.
And if you did throw, you might end up with a heel in your mouth. Like, Tony was just crazy. And then he could take you down and put in what he's really, really good at, which is wrestling. Get you down on the ground and just pick you apart on the ground. But because of his injuries, which is an extensive list, maybe he hasn't used that because he just physically can't do it anymore. Would make sense. I mean, he's had some lower body injuries, some ankle injuries, some knee injuries, I think an Achilles injury in there. Those are stuff that would limit that crazy style of fighting that he's known for. And if that's the case, he has no chance in this fight. And he has no chance, and he should just retire, to be quite frank and blunt and honest.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. Tony Ferguson, to me, like, this fight for me is like he should be able to win this fight just because, like, if we're talking about the old Tony, he should be able to win this fight. It's because, like you said, Dariush, even though I love watching him fight, even though I know he's really good, he's not at the same level as some of the fighters that Tony has fought in the like, top contender spot or even like championship spot wise, so that's why I don't know, man. I just don't think he has it in him anymore. I think he's just gonna disappoint me. No, I don't know what the fans are seeing, but here's the thing. I kind of want Tony to win. I want to see the old Tony back, but I think that's just wishful thinking,
I think we also have to start asking the question, and this is again, please at me. If you don't like what I'm about to say, I understand it. Tony was always really, really entertaining to watch, to be in the octagon. But I think we need to start asking the question, was Tony ever a legitimate contender?
Yeah.
I mean, sure. If we just go through his fight history, you look at it, he beat Kevin Lee, he beat RDA, which is a huge win. Even though RDA struggled when he went up in weight. Donald Cerrone, I'm sorry. That was what I'm sorry. And then the Donald Cerrone victory, which was his first before the Khabib cancellation, was his last victory. I mean, that's in 2019. That's when Donald Cerrone wasn't Donald Cerrone anymore. Donald Cerrone's Cowboy's been on a downturn since 2019.
Yeah.
So I mean, you go down his victories, you start asking the question, maybe Tony wasn't he was always good, but maybe he wasn't actually as good as we thought he was. Um, and I just think that might be true. He never stood a chance against Khabib. I don't know why he's still dying for that fight. He's just gonna get destroyed. So, anyway, I'm picking Beneil Dariush. If Tony can somehow do what he's known for doing, I think he can win this fight. But I just don't think he can.
All right, so we're gonna move on to the main event of the evening, as Bruce Buffer likes to say. And this is to me, this fight is so evenly matched. Like, I've never seen, like, for me, I don't think I've ever been more on the fence about a fight than I am about this main event. We're talking about Charles Do Bronx Oliveira versus Michael Chandler. So, I think I'm edging. Okay, I'm leaning towards Chandler, but at the same time, I really want Do Bronx to win. Now, the reason why I'm leaning towards Chandler is because, like, striking wise, I think he edges Oliveira out just by a little bit. And at the same time, when it comes to, like, picking a fighter, I always pick the fighter that has a really good wrestling background, because wrestling is so dominant in this sport. You know, especially now. And the same thing, the reason why this is so unique is because Charles Oliveira is a great grappler. So even though Michael Chandler can wrestle him, he might be able to get out of that easily, obviously. And he's a BJJ specialist, as everybody knows. I just think that I'm leaning towards Michael Chandler for this one. I don't know what it is, and, like, you know, Do Bronx probably has the reach advantage as well in this, because Michael Chandler is a small dude, to be quite frank. But I don't know, man. I'm leaning towards him because his striking is just outweighing it just a little bit, and then he's a wrestler as well. So that's what I'm picking. But what do you think, Alec Carr? Because I'm still on the fence about this one.
Do Bronx. He's gonna win this fight.
Okay.
Okay. He's gonna win this fight, and people may crush me for this. I'm sure if Dustin watches this, he'll crush me because I've been on the Michael Chandler train since before he came to the UFC. I love the guy. I maybe not outside the octagon so much, but I love him inside the octagon. The guy's an absolute warrior. He never turns down fights. He never backs away from fights. I can't say he's better at anything other than wrestling than Do Bronx actually does. Okay. I can't say he's a better striker because I don't know if he is. Listen, what he did against Hooker was absolutely amazing. Hooker wasn't ready for that. Hooker was waiting to get pulled down to the ground, and all of a sudden he gets a stiff right hand right to the jaw, and it's over. Again, very entertaining, and I've said it a million times about Hooker, and he's a great fighter, he's a great striker, but he's not a contender, and he never will be. Michael Chandler's a real contender. He's an absolute real contender. He does have power for days, but Do Bronx Oliveira's striking has gotten so much better. Watching him against Tony Ferguson and watching his other fights, he's got an overhand right that's absolutely pinpoint. The guy knows how to use a jab now. And like we've said many times, he is the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu artist in the game right now. One of the greatest of all time. I know wrestling is kind of the negating factor of the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Listen, we were told Justin Gaethje was the best wrestler in the world coming into the UFC, and he got absolutely annihilated. We have yet to see his wrestling.
Yes, we have yet to see his wrestling. That's the difference, though. Michael Chandler will use his wrestling. Yeah. Right.
Michael Chandler is at a different level of wrestling than Gaethje was at. What I was about to say, and Dustin will probably crush me for this too. I've always said the other promotions don't even hold a bar to the UFC. I love Michael Chandler. I think he should have been in the UFC from day one of his career. I think he was good enough. He got offered. He turned it down. Do Bronx is the best fighter in the division. And Do Bronx is an absolute monster. He's got the reach advantage. He knows how to use his length on the ground, which is key. That's what makes you good at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, is knowing how to use your length on the ground. not just in striking, on the ground. And yes, for people who don't know much about it, that is absolutely 110% possible. He knows how to use his long limbs. He will apply pressure to point. The fact that Tony didn't tap when his arm was almost inside out was absolutely insane.
That was gross, man.
The 9 out of 10 people other than Tony are tapping out every single time. That was absolutely insane. I thought the elbow was about to pop out. But that's how he uses his length. He gets you into positions on the ground and he fools you. He knows how to use tricks on the ground too when he's on his back. He will trick you into thinking that you're in the position you want to be, and all of a sudden you're tapping out. I think that's what we see in this fight. I think not Tony. I think Michael Chandler has never faced a Brazilian jiu-jitsu artist as good as good as Do Bronx. And I don't think anybody he's faced is even close to as good as Do Bronx. And I think Do Bronx will fool him on the ground. I think that this will be his stand-up fight because neither fighter will want to go to the ground that much. But once it does get to the ground, because it will, I think Do Bronx, his fight IQ, will use his fight IQ to his advantage and get him into a situation that Michael Chandler thinks he wants to be in. And all of a sudden we see a choke, we see an armbar, we see something crazy, and Michael Chandler's tapping out. I think this is over in the fourth round. I think it's submission by Do Bronx.
Well, okay, I'm going to interrupt you there, even though I know you probably just finished your rant right there. But, okay, to be fair, Michael Chandler has faced someone who is really good. His name is Patricio Pitbull. You know, that's the one person that...
You'll come back with that.
I have to, man. You got to earn that. That's respect right there, you know?
I love Pitbull, I do. But he's not on the same. And he is an elite Brazilian jiu-jitsu artist.
He's elite, man. He's elite. I have to pay respect to him, you know, for sure.
Do Bronx is up here. Everybody else is down here. That's all I'm saying. The guy's absolutely insane. He's absolutely insane.
Is like he's in his prime. So obviously, yes, like he's up there. But for some reason, like I have to pay respect to Patricio Pitbull because he's an amazing fighter as well. So for sure, I have to pay respect to him.
And I was just about to say this too. That's a great point. It's a totally different body type.
That's true.
Do Bronx is long, lanky, thin and lanky, knows how to use that length, has a huge advantage on the ground with that length, whereas, Patricio Pitbull is built like Michael Chandler. He's
pretty much, yeah, short and stacked.
Short and stocky and a pitbull. And the guy's an absolute, the Pitbull is he's known as a strong fighter. He is just stronger than most of the other guys. And he uses that strength to overpower you. Whereas the way I see it, Do Bronx is finesse artist on the ground. And it's absolutely beautiful to see when he gets it tricked. Like what he did to Tony, the whole fight. He kept tricking him. Tony thought he was in a great position and all of a sudden, oh, fuck, what's happening? My elbow's inside out. What is going on? And I don't see the fight going the same way as the Tony Ferguson fight, obviously, but I think this is going to be a really, really close fight that ends in a submission, set up the whole fight by the smarter fighter, who I think is the smarter fighter in Do Bronx.
Yeah, I think they both are very smart fighters. They both are very strong. I think just because I go with what I know, and what I know is that wrestling is dominant, and what I know is that Michael Chandler has the better knockout power, in my opinion, than Do Bronx. Striking wise, they're neck and neck. Even though I think Michael Chandler is just a little bit above, but they're pretty much neck and neck. And I would love Do Bronx to win. That's the guy I'm rooting for this weekend, for my birthday weekend. It's funny because it's the day after my birthday, so it's happy birthday to me to watch this card. But at the same time, I can't go. I have to go with what I know, and what I do know is that Michael Chandler has the tools to win. Do Bronx has the tools to win. This is going to be a really close fight. I don't know who's going to win, honestly. I'm on the fence with it because, like I said, this is the only fight for me that I've been really, really on the fence with it. I keep going back and forth. Do Bronx, Michael Chandler, Do Bronx, Michael Chandler. and we'll see. We'll see what happens.
I will say this: wrestling is obviously the trend in the UFC right now. Good wrestling beats out everything. It's the trend. It's what's working. It's what the young guys are learning. I mean, young fighters coming up before they get in the UFC are focusing on wrestling. It's what they're doing. Kevin Holland is going to.
I was gonna say, yeah, good example. Yes, yes.
Kevin Holland is not as good at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as do Bronx, though. Few people are. Wrestling wins out 9.5 times out of 10. It absolutely does. But when you get extremely high-level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with good striking and extremely high fight IQ that Du Bronx has, who can set up those submissions, he can take the whole fight, and then in the last minute of the fifth round, you're in a submission he's been setting up since the first second of the fight.
That's for sure, yeah.
And yeah. I think because of that, I really think that's why he wins this fight. It's not because, Michael Chandler is the worst fighter. I'm not even saying that. I'm just saying I'm going to go with Du Bronx's fight IQ and his submission styles over Michael Chandler because that fight IQ is just ridiculously high.
That's true. Fight IQ is in my top 3 things I look forward to. So when it comes to a great fighter, so anyways, I'm still on the fence with this one. We should see this weekend what happens. My birthday weekend, so I'm really blessed to have this card. Thank you. It's on Friday. It's the Friday, and the next day is the freaking goddamn UFC 262 card. This is what I'm talking about right here. That's how you do a birthday. In a pandemic. In a pandemic, but thank you for the early birthday wishes. Next week's card is not looking too great. We have Rob Font versus Cody Garbrandt. That card is not aging well right now, but nonetheless, there is a fight card next week. Nonetheless, yes, we will talk about it, and then there's a fight card next week. So, to everybody, happy fight week, and we will see you guys next week for Fights Unwrapped. Bye, everybody. Bye, B.